Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news. Some big news coming in this morning as well. Potentially 2 injury blows for Erik ten Hag and Manchester United on this international break. ONANA and Rashford, we'll talk about that. Also, a big development around the CEO, the new CEO-elect, Jean-Claude BLANC, now coming out from Simon Stone in the BBC. We spoke about this in depth last night. It now looks like that we were ahead of the game there in what we were reporting from France. Also, a bit of confusion around Sir Jim Radcliffe's purchase of Manchester United. I was certainly confused last night, 25%. I didn't do well at maths. GCSE maths is not my strong point, so ridicule me, I don't care. I got a C. I was thick at school, let's be honest. But we'll get into that as well. Also want to delve into Rashford. A lot of people on his back again. I mean, take the goals away. What do you get out of Rashford? But then again, take the goals away from Haaland. What do you get out of him? So lots to get into on this morning show, and unfortunately some some news to get into that might not be the best for Manchester United. Before we get into all of that, though, let me remind you today is a big day for the United Stand community, and That's Football community, and a community in general. I will be live from 11 o'clock on That's Football for my all-day charity stream, raising money again for people with terminal illness through the Marie Curie Centre. We've already raised £2,500 just by mentioning it on That's Football last night. So United Stand crew, you know what to do. Links in the live chat. You can start contributing now, or you can join us from 11 o'clock. We've got a fun-packed day as well. I'm going to be doing FIFA drafts, pro clubs, some Grand Theft Auto live racing, Fall Guys, horror games, Q&As. It's all open because it's all for charity. I'll answer the questions. I don't care. What do I think about such and such? What about such and such? Should pineapple go on pizza? The lot. It's going to be a cracking stream. Even if you can just join us for an hour today, or you want to try and do it all day, or whatever, it's going to be great. I'm going to have the TV on as well. We're getting close to Christmas. Let's get a good vibe with good people and help people who are suffering. That's what I want to do today. So please do join in and please do contribute. Links in the live chat now. Right, let's get on with the show. Look, international break, surprise, surprise. We've got issues around injuries. I don't subscribe to this opinion that when we get our players back, we're going to be fine. We've had a ridiculous amount of injuries in the first 3 months of this season. We're not suddenly going to hit the finishing line and go, that's it, we're fine. We're not going to get any more injuries. The more games players play, the more injuries we will get. Unless we're going to put Bruno Fernandes, ONANA, Rashford, Harry Maguire and everybody else into a box for 2 weeks and say don't come out again until Man United play, they will pick up injuries. And international duty means football, and football means you can get injured. So ONANA went off yesterday after about 80 minutes with an abductor problem, which is the muscles in the stomach. Marcus Rashford had a collision with Trent Alexander-Arnold. It didn't look that bad, and I think Rashford will be okay. I think there's a bigger issue with Rashford we can talk about in a moment. But yeah, every team gets injuries, Marks is saying. They do. I don't think we can use it as an excuse. I've said this before. I think that there are a lot of reasons why Man United are picking up injuries, overplaying, probably didn't do the business in the summer that we should have done in certain areas, certainly at centre-back. But the ONANA one is a bit of a concern because as a goalkeeper, stomach muscles, stretching, rolling it out. It's all about your core. It's all about your stomach muscles. And if he's had to come off with something like that, then maybe there is more of a concern about ONANA. Some might say, well, he's going to miss January anyway with the AFCON. But ultimately, I'm more thinking about the next 3 games, which are massive. Everton, Galatasaray and Newcastle away, starting a week tomorrow. And look, whatever you think about ONANA, he's a £50 million goalkeeper. He's the replacement for David De Gea. And if this was David De Gea out last season, we'd be concerned about Tom Heaton being the goalkeeper. We know nothing about Binder. Maybe it will be Binder. Maybe it will be Tom Heaton. But I think that this is a blow. Of course it's a blow. It's an injury. It's an expensive summer signing. It's somebody that's meant to be the heir to the throne of David De Gea. And he's still not really established himself as a Man United goalkeeper, although over the last few games, he's had a couple of clean sheets and he's played quite well. So I don't really want to see anybody getting injured, and I certainly don't want to see ONANA getting injured, but it is the one that probably concerns me the most. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that one develops. But, I still think ONANA hasn't convinced everybody. And there are some people saying, well, let's give Bienda a chance. And I get that, but what if you give him a chance and he's rubbish? Or what if it takes him time to settle in? I think we need an Onana fit. I really do. And hopefully it won't be that bad. With Marcus Rashford, I don't think that's going to be too bad. It didn't look too bad to me, the collision. Didn't really seem to... There was no head connection. There didn't seem to be any twists or anything like that. I don't really know. Sometimes those can be the worst, but I don't think Rashford will be out for long. I think he'll probably be back involved on Monday night for England. The bigger issue with Rashford, and I want to talk about that a little bit later, is another below par performance against Malta for Marcus Rashford, and I saw him a couple of times trying to take on their fullback and he got tackled. And with all due respect to Malta, this is not Champions League football, this is not Premier League football. So I think there are a lot of people this morning saying about Rashford, I've seen it on social media, you take away those goals, what do you get? He's 26. At what point are we going to accept that we're paying a lot of money for a very average player if he doesn't score goals? I slightly disagree with that. I want to talk about that in a few minutes, though, because I want to get into some of the key news this morning. So ONANA injured. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. We're still waiting to see how long Højlund and Eriksen are going to be out. But what is consistent with Manchester United this season is it seems every week we pick up an injury. And that's a massive, massive problem that needs to be looked at, whether it's increasing the squad, replacing them injury players, or looking at the fitness department. A solution has to be found, and it has to be found very, very quickly. A solution around the CEO looks like it's going to happen. Fantastic Friday night show last night. We were a little bit early because I was doing the England watch-along, which was fantastic. I mean, the highlight of that show last night was, would Jack have got onto the headboard if Rose had moved over? I mean, I've got an update from the source, a very good source, James Cameron, coming up on the charity stream about that one. You don't want to miss it. This is straight from James Cameron. But back to football. Yes, so Jean-Claude Blanc, who is formerly of Juventus, rebuilt Juventus after their problems, spent the last decade, I think, at PSG. He is now Manchester United's #1 target for CEO. There was reports in France yesterday. Obviously, he's got good connections to Paris, France. I think he actually is French, isn't he, with the name Jean-Claude Blanc? I'd be stunned if he's not. Ignorant of me, but I presume he is French. So French sources saying that this deal for Jean-Claude Blanc is basically done. We know with French sources that we're not French, so well, some of you might be, but we sometimes they say things about Man United that are true and sometimes they don't. But Simon Stone is and has been a BBC journalist, Manchester United correspondent extraordinaire for years. He put an article out yesterday saying that Jean-Claude Blanc is highly likely to be the guy that Sir Jim Radcliffe chooses. So I think we are moving into that position with Blanc now, where it's very likely he will be the CEO of Manchester United. And I think when someone like Simon Stone is writing an article like that, he can't say deal done because he works for the BBC and they can't be doing they can't be doing stuff that they're not sure about, basically. Verified information is what they go on. But it's looking highly likely that he will come in. I spoke about him in depth last night. Be very excited about bringing a person like this in. In a short, succinct summary, Jean-Claude Blanc would be a very good choice. I had no idea of a name. I had an idea of what I wanted. I didn't want them to be British just because we're a British football club. I wanted one of the best CEOs in the world with a proven track record who knows how to rebuild big football clubs. And Jean-Claude Blanc ticks every single box there. I can't argue with it. He's one of the best reputational CEOs in the world. He's built big clubs like Juventus, PSG. I think he's perfect. The only thing some people might not like is the passport. But there are no British CEOs out there that have the pedigree of that, and we should be appointing the best. My only other concern is what I said last night. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Sir David Brailsford, Sir Jim Radcliffe, Joel Glazer, Jean-Claude Blanc, new director of football, Erik ten Hag. You've got a lot of people there. I'd be interested to see how it's going to work. But I think this is a positive. And it's an open goal positive. You cannot like the deal Sir Jim Radcliffe is doing with the Glazers and like the CEO appointment, because if Qatar had bought the club, they would have probably given him the job as well because he worked for PSG. So I don't think this is, oh yeah, the Sir Jim Radcliffe revolution starts. These are easy goals that you would score as an owner, and Sheikh Jassim would have scored. Getting in a good CEO has to happen. There's a few things that Sir Jim Radcliffe has to do. They're not even innovative. He's just got to do them. New director of football, new CEO. And this works. Hi, Mark. Off topic, but what will happen with the rest of the Glazer siblings part of the club? Do they all have a say, or is it just Joe and Glazer and Jim? That was a super chat from Football or Soccer. Thank you very much. And I'm just about to talk about that. Ralph is the one of the best out there, ironically. Says true. Yeah, well, we missed out with Ranić. We really did. Make sure you smash a like on the video, by the way, and get your comments in. But it looks like BLANC is going to come in as Manchester United CEO. Now, let's talk about this confusion around Sir Jim Radcliffe. Now, where we are at the moment is that either Monday or Tuesday or potentially Wednesday, this announcement will come around Sir Jim Radcliffe and what's going to happen with Manchester United. The finer detail we all crave, really. Thanksgiving is next Thursday, I think, in America, and they want this deal done by then because the Glazers are American, apparently. They are American, but apparently they want it done by then. So next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we will get this finer detail. Again, last night, we got some really contradictory information. And again, this is all about who's in the know. Is anybody in the know? We don't really know. And effectively, what was coming out last night is, and I tweeted and I completely missed the boat. But to be honest, I was doing a live stream at the time, doing jokes about the Titanic and drinking red wine. I wasn't in my peak mathematic brain, and I don't really have a peak mathematic brain anyway. But effectively, what was coming out was that Sir Jim Radcliffe, who is buying 25% of the club, is also buying 25% of the Glazer shares, which is where it starts to get technical, because if you're buying 25% of the club, you're buying 12.5% of Glazer shares and 12.5% of the shareholder shares. But if you're buying 25% of the Glazer shares, well, 25% of 69% isn't 12.5%, it's more. It's like it's a smaller pool, so you're getting more shares. So what's 25% of 69%? It's about 17%, isn't it? So he's getting 17% of the Glazer shares and 12% of the normal shares, which would actually give him more than 25%. It'd give him nearly 30%. So it's all getting a little bit confusing. But there was a really good tweet that came out, and I'll always shout out people who are, you know, informative and take their time on things. And this comes from a Twitter account called the Swedish Rumble, which I'm sure many of you may have heard before. And I think it's quite long-winded, but it sort of breaks it all down. And I'm going to summarise it here. There are some conflicting reports exactly how Ineos share acquisition of 25% offer will be constructed. Effectively, Sky is reporting that the offer will be $33 per share. This would mean that the offer would be around 1.08 billion. With an overall value of 5 billion. This is significantly lower than what was being reported, and it's certainly lower than what Qatar were willing to offer. How can this make sense, given that $33 per share in any event is much lower than the Glazers expected to accept? There is potentially room to differentiate the price paid for the Class B shares from the Class A shares, but if both figures are correct and $33 is paid for the Class A shares and the total worth is 1.44 billion, that would mean that either under Alternative 1 they would pay $52 for a B share, or under Alternative 2, $47 per share. It's also noteworthy if the exact offer price is leaked, leaking the share price of a coming tender offer is basically criminal. It could still be done, and I don't think the risk is high of anyone ending up behind bars, but if you can get away with it leaking a rough price, why the heck give away the exact or offer price? It's all very remarkable. And I think, look, go and read that by Swedish Rumble, because it goes into a lot more depth. But what they're basically saying is, it's really confusing what's going on here. It was meant to be 1.44 billion for 25%, and now we're hearing it's 25% of the Glazers shares, and they're going to pay the same share price as they pay for the Class A shares, which haven't got voting rights. And also, why a share price is being leaked when we're listed on the stock exchange? Is that not, you know, manipulation of share price? So this is what I mean. You get certain people who are, you know, vocal about this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen, and then you get realists like that account saying there's a lot of grey areas here, and ultimately the price being quoted to buy the Glazers 25% would value the club at about $1 billion for that, which is going to be overall a lot less than what Qatar offered. So I think the devil is in the detail, quite literally. I think we need to wait for the detail. And the problem is, a few weeks ago, we had this story that Sir Jim had won, and people ran away with the fact that we'll be owned by Sir Jim by 2026. We'll have won the Premier League and the treble by 2027. And all this fake positivity comes about because that's just natural human behaviour, to hope that something good's going to happen. But there's no detail out there at the moment, and it's all speculative, and it's all contradictory as well. One outlet says this, one outlet says that. What we need is the detail, and that's what I'm looking forward to next week. I want the detail, because there may well be, he may well be on a pathway to having the whole club by 2026. But what you've got to remember is, with Sir Jim Radcliffe, or anybody is, even if he owns the whole club in 2026, has he got the skills, money, and ability to compete with Man City? I think some of our fans have almost become not football fans, but business acquisition fans. Like, they've almost become business specialists over what football is. Just because Sir Jim Radcliffe gets hold of Manchester United doesn't mean it's a good thing. Like, there are people have become obsessed with share acquisition, percentages, pathways, how much he's going to pay per share. People are obsessed with this. What if he blows everything he wants to spend on buying the club and there's not hardly anything left at the end? I'm obsessed with the whole picture. I want to know the pathway to buying the football club, and I want to know the next 5 to 10 years on taking us back to the top. Because there's absolutely no point having a British local guy owning Manchester United but not having the business acumen, football experience or money to actually compete with the Newcastles and Man Cities. Because if it's going to take Sir Jim Radcliffe to buy Man United outright 3 years, can you imagine where Newcastle are going to be in 3 years? Can you imagine where Man City are going to be in 3 years? I mean, hopefully, but in the National League with all these charges. But, you know, honestly, I don't know. We all love Titanic and Red Wine Bridge, says James. Thank you very much. So, look, I think the devil is in the detail with Manchester United. And what we've just got to be very open-minded and have our eyes wide open. There are certain people out there that want to jump onto the train because they think it's beneficial to get on the train first because you get a better seat. But actually, sometimes you get on the train, it breaks down. Sometimes it's going to the wrong direction. As Manchester United fans, we might not agree on everything, but one thing we can agree on is that we've had 20 years of false promises and that never get delivered. And if we're just going to jump onto the next promise, which is also Glazer promised as well because they still own the football club, then I think that's massively naive. And I think the real heroes of the fan base at the moment, and I think this would be respected by Sir Jim as well, the real heroes of the fan base at the moment are the ones who are challenging it, the ones who are calling it out, the ones who are saying, we don't trust this information, the ones that are saying, I'll wait and see the information, and I want to see all the information. I don't think Sir Jim Radcliffe needs the bandwagon fans who just jump on anything because, you know, it's not Qatar or whatever like that. Whatever reason there are, I think there's more respect in the people who challenge people. And I think that that's what we need to do. There are a lot of grey areas in this. And even if he does get hold of the whole club, what if he's an owner like West Ham's owners, or I'm trying to think of other British owners of Manchester United, of Premier League football clubs that do okay but can't take them to the next level. I don't want an owner that just gets hold of Man United and he goes, look at me, I'm British and I support the club, Manchester for Manchester United, but we can only finish 6th every year because we just don't have the ability to compete. There was an option there to go down the model of being super rich and probably get back to the top of football. That's the option that I want Sir Jim Radcliffe to deliver. And can he do that is a big question we have to wait and see about. But next week should be big. Bobby Russell says, if 1.44 billion equals 17% of the club, that puts the value of the club at 8.47 billion. Then add 800 million debt equals 9.27 billion to buy United and clear the debt. I think that, Bobby, I think what we're working off here in a very, very quick, simple way, because I know at this time in the morning, maths is probably going to annoy a lot of people, is just there doesn't seem to be a lot of clarity around what's actually happening. Yesterday, there was talk of Sir Jim's buying 25% of the Glazer shares. Well, the Glazers only own 69%. So, and then he's going to buy... It's all getting very confusing. But what we thought was happening, and what was always promoted as happening, was that Sir Jim Radcliffe pays 1.44 billion for 25% of the club. That would value the club at 4 times 1.44 billion, which takes you up to just somewhere between 5.5 billion and 6 billion, closer to 6 billion to be fair, which is more or less what the Glazers wanted. So that was the assumption, 1.44 billion for 25% of the club. But if it's 25% of the Glazers shares and 12.5% of the shareholders shares, that takes it up to, well beyond 30%, around 30% for 1.44, which massively decreases the overall value. But look, maybe he is, there are many pathways. Maybe he pays more for later percentages. Maybe he pays 1.44 billion for 25% of the Glazers shares now, and then he pays 3 billion for the next 25%. We don't know, but the devil in the detail is what we need. What did you make of McAteer's post about Roy Keane, says Keith? I mean, who is Jason McAteer in the modern game? I'm old enough to remember who he was as a player, but who is he in the modern game to be, having a pop at Roy Keane? Jason McAteer's post to me reminded me of somebody who is living their life very bitter, and we know what that can do to people. People need to move on. Look within. Find happiness. Look around you. If you're not happy, make changes to be happy. But stop looking at other people, thinking you're going to find happiness by moaning about them. It's petty and silly. And Roy Keane was a much better footballer than Jason McAteer. That's the bottom line. Simple as. Let's talk about footballers. Let's go back to Marcus Rashford. I have seen a lot about Rashford this morning and last night. It was a very subdued performance against Malta. Obviously, he scored against Italy in the last international break. Wasn't able to bring that confidence and goal-scoring ability back to Manchester United. He's now gone on England duty, and he did look very subdued yesterday. You would have been thinking at the start of the game against Malta that there might be a few goals for Rashford and a few others. It was a crap game. To beat Malta, what was it, 2-0 at Wembley, and one of them was an own goal. It was an embarrassing performance from England, and certainly Rashford wasn't the only one that underperformed. But I'm only interested in Marcus Rashford because he plays for Manchester United. I've seen some interesting things said about Rashford, and I think it's easy to pile on to a player when things aren't going well. There is a flip side to that coin. When he starts scoring goals again, are those fans going to say, well, I don't rate him, or are they going to jump on the bandwagon again? I'm absolutely convinced, like Ten Hag, that Marcus Rashford does start scoring goals again. I don't think you lose the ability to do that, and I think he will do. There is an interesting critique that if you take the goals away from Rashford, this is what you end up with. And if he's not scoring goals, why are we paying $350,000 a week for him and giving him the star player status? Because he's not particularly good at tracking back. He's not particularly good at linking up the play. Take away the goals, he's pretty standard footballer. But I would say if you take away the goals from Erling Haaland, he's a pretty standard footballer as well. I think the more relevant thing is, and I would love Rashford to have developed. I think I said it at 21, 22, 23. He needs to develop the other side to his game. If Rashford wasn't scoring goals, but he had creativity, it wouldn't matter as much. If Kevin De Bruyne stopped scoring goals, he'll create goals. And it's the same with people like Bruno Fernandes and Bernardo Silva and people like that. So I wish Marcus Rashford had developed other parts of his game. I wish he had been had developed that, but he didn't. And not everybody does. He's a goal scorer. He's a striker on the wing. That's what Rashford is. And I think that's part of the problem people have. They see him as a winger, but he's never been a winger. He does chip in with the odd assist, but it's not his first thought. When Marcus Rashford gets the ball, we all know what his first thought is. Take a player on and shoot, or cut inside and shoot, or shoot. That's what Rashford does. That's what he is. He's a striker on the wing. Højlund is probably not going to get a lot of service from that side until Luke Shaw comes back for the overlap. So that's what Marcus Rashford is. He is a goal-scoring wide player. And if you take those goals away, it's not rocket science to say that you're not left with that much, because that's what he is. I don't think he's been sold as a creator. I don't think he's been sold as a player that wins the ball back high up the pitch or anything like that. He is what he is. Now, why is Rashford in this position at the moment? Dropping confidence, of course. Has he been figured out a bit by the opposition? I don't know, because 2 years ago he was playing like this, and then last year he was untouchable. So I don't think he's been figured out. I think he's a flair player. And the thing about a flair player is, when the fire's burning bright, it'll burn you. When the fire's out, you can stamp all over it, and it ain't going to burn you. And I think at the moment, for whatever reason, the fire's gone out with Marcus Rashford. Now, I've heard things about personal life, like the girlfriend relationship has broken down, and whenever this happens, he doesn't play very well. I mean, for me, that's I don't know. I don't look at those sort of things. That to me is personal life, mythical. You're telling me that a footballer has to be going out with a certain girl to play good on the pitch. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But is it focus off the pitch? That might be something. Is it something going on within the club? Is he unsettled? I mean, these things I don't know the mental side of Marcus Rashford or a lot of Man United players, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe that is an issue. Maybe it's just bad luck. Maybe things just aren't going well. Maybe the way the team's playing doesn't suit the way he wants to play. Maybe we're not counter-attacking quick enough to leave him in spaces where he can run through into space. Look, there are many ways to analyse this, but I think the fact that Ten Hag is almost on the same page as I am, and probably some of you are as well, it feels like a matter of time before this solves itself, rather than something that's going to stay forever. But obviously, with every passing game, you do become a little bit more like, well, when is this going to start? I really do think he scores a goal and then everything will kick into place. I've seen this with strikers in the past. I remember Alan Shearer going into Euro 96 and people were saying drop him from the England team because he hadn't scored for ages. And then suddenly, I think he was top scorer in Euro 96. So it can happen. But I think there has to be an element of realism here. And there are two elements I would call out. First of all, take the goals away from Rashford and there's not much there. Well, maybe you're right, but take away the goals from Erling Haaland and there's not much there. And Rashford is a striker playing on the wing. So what's the difference between Haaland and Rashford without goals? Of course, goals are important. I think Rashford without goals does become a little bit redundant in some sense, but goals win games. That's why we pay him the money. So, of course, people will say we've given him a ridiculous contract and he's not performing, but if he'd scored 10 goals this season, everyone would be saying it's worth it. The problem to solve here is not to overanalyze a game of somebody who relies on goals and not to overanalyze what we pay him for those goals. Of course, he's not delivering wages wise, and of course, he's not delivering goals wise, but it's not rocket science to say we pay him for goals and he's a goal scorer. So when the goals dry up, it looks like we're paying for nothing. But we paid him for the goals. So I almost feel like it's a bit hypocritical to be critical of him because to me, I just see him as a goal scorer. That's what he is. He's a goal scorer. And I think people get lost because he's on the wing. They think he's going to be Mahrez or someone like that. He's never been that, probably never will be that. He's a goal scorer and we've got to get him scoring goals. And that's the problem because if he scores goals, no one's moaning about what he's earning. If he scores goals, his confidence is up there. That's what we've got to solve. Is he one-dimensional? Only as much as Erling Haaland's one-dimensional. Rashford is the goal scorer. That's what we pay him money for. If Erling Haaland went and played for Real Madrid tomorrow, they'd probably give him 600 grand a week or 500 grand a week because he scores goals. The problem with Rashford is if he stops scoring goals, it becomes a problem. He's a winner. I don't think so. When the going gets tough, I don't like the cut of his jib, says Rory C. Thank you very much. You're a joke comparing Haaland and Rashford, says Kelvin. I mean, I'm not a joke, Kelvin. You're just a bit thick because I'm not comparing. If anybody thinks I'm comparing Marcus Rashford to Erling Haaland, you need to go and get yourself some help. I'm not comparing them. What I'm saying is that, look, Danny Ings then. Take goals away from Danny Ings. There's not a lot else there. Ollie Watkins. Take goals away from Ollie Watkins. There's not a lot else there. They're goal scorers. That's what I'm saying. I'm not comparing Erling Haaland to Marcus Rashford. I'm comparing the fact that if you take goals away from Erling Haaland, there's not a lot else there because that's what he is. And Marcus Rashford is a goal scorer. But the criticism to Rashford comes from the fact that people think he's Kylian Mbappe or he's Riyad Mahrez or he's Kevin De Bruyne. That if the goals dry up, he should suddenly start creating goals with, defence splitting passes or David Beckham-like crosses. I mean, he's never going to put those crosses in because he's a right footer on the left-hand side for a start. But my point is, I'm not... obviously, Erling Haaland is a striker and he's one of the best strikers in the world. But Marcus Rashford he plays on the wing, but he basically is a goal scorer. So you take the goals away, and of course there's not a lot else there. Whether there should be something else there, well, that's not on Rashford. That's on the coach. Marcus Rashford is not going to be putting in loads of crosses for Rasmus Højlund. That's not going to be his first thought. His first thought is going to be scoring goals because that's what he is. You can't criticise the lad for being that. That's what he is. That's what we've created. If Ten Hag doesn't want that on the wing, then maybe he should play Garnacho. But Marcus Rashford's a goal scorer. That's what I'm saying. And that's the problem. If he doesn't score goals, then like any other striker in world football, you will be criticised. Do you think he could do better on the right, says Daniel? Well, if there's a problem with Rashford scoring goals, if you put him on the right, he'll score less goals because he can't cut inside and shoot. But if you want him to create more, he'll create more off the right. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really. I think off the right-hand side, Rashford is more creative, but he'll score less. On the left-hand side, he's less creative, but he'll score more. Because the inverted winger scores more because they cut inside. And if you cut inside from the left-hand side, there's so much you can do. You can go bottom corner, top corner, left-hand side. But if you cut in from the right-hand side, on your right foot, your angles are difficult. You've not got all of the goal to shoot at. You're sort of looking at the goal like that with your right foot. Whereas if you come in from this side, you're looking at it like that, more centrally. So Rashford wants to play on the left for that reason. I've heard people say, oh, it's bang out of order the way Rashford just demands that he plays on the left. I demand to play on the left if I was Rashford. If I know I'm a goal scorer, I want to play on the left because I want to cut inside and have a better chance of scoring. On the right-hand side, he's got a better chance of a more natural cross, but he's got less chance of scoring goals. So that's the left wing, right wing problem for Marcus Rashford and Erik ten Hag, and it's a very simple one. Off the left, he wants to play there because he's got a better chance of scoring. Off the right, he can be more creative, but a less chance of scoring. So what would you do? In fact, let's run a poll on it. Let's run a poll. This is what we're here for. Where should Rashford play? And I will answer this. Right now, I'd put him on the right. Oh, but you're contradicting yourself. You said he's only a goal scorer. I know. But I've always believed that Rashford should develop other parts to his game. He'll always be able to score goals. Gene is here. Thank you very much for your super chat. He'll always be able to have the ability to shoot. But he hasn't got the ability to be creative. I would put him on the right-hand side and say, look, next 10 games, let's work on the creative side of your game. Because the goals, I know they've dried up, but I know they'll come back. But what I need to work on is the creative side of things. And Garnacho gives us creativity from the left, and I think you can give us creativity from the right. But look, this is almost like 101 Dalmatians, isn't it? Well, it's not. That's about dogs. But what I'm saying is there's about 101 problems for Erik ten Hag. We've just spoken about the injury to ONANA. We know centre-back we're dodgy. We know the full-back situations. We've had problems. The midfield is a bloody nightmare. We've got to create chances for Højlund, who might not even be fit. And then we're talking about the wingers, because if you put Rashford to the right, that means Antony's on the bench. If you put Garnacho on the left, you know, there are so many problems for Ten Hag to solve. And here we are in late November going into really important games. And everywhere you look, there are problems. Hi, Mark. I think if Rashford plays more on the right and started to get more assists, it would boost his confidence and maybe he'd start scoring again, says CJ. It's a mindset with Marcus Rashford, because I think he judges himself on scoring goals. And if he doesn't score goals, the head drops. But I think if he started providing assists, the way this fan base works, they'd give him massive praise. And then he'd see that praise and go, I don't need to score all the time. I will get praise for being creative. So I think there is a big win for Rashford there. But I think at the moment, he's just locked in on goals because that's all he's ever done, score goals. And in no way is that a bad thing. It's a brilliant thing. But I think he judges himself on scoring goals. And if he doesn't score goals, I think he lets his head drop. But actually, he would get massive appreciation if he became... I mean, imagine if Rashford put in a beautiful cross to the back post for Højlund to tap it in. Højlund, people would go, Rasmus. But within seconds, you'd go, but that's all about the cross. What a cross by Rashford. Football fans aren't stupid, and Man United fans aren't stupid. We will always appreciate the architect, and we've seen it time and time again. Like Casemiro, the little, I think Casemiro last season, I forget the game, where he knocked a brilliant little dinky pass into maybe Bruno, who then squared it for someone to score, and that wasn't even an assist. It was a second assist. It was the pass before the assist, and everyone wouldn't shut up about it. You know, we do think we see this all the time. We've seen Wan-Bissaka hit a lovely ball to the wing, and then a cross comes in, and we'll always go back and appreciate the real architect. So. Look, I think there is something there. I genuinely think Rashford should play attacking right back, overlapping and putting crosses in under less pressure, says Tim. Yeah, I genuinely don't think that, Tim. Still inconsistent Rashford. Greetings from Macedonia, says Thomas. And Sancho, Antony, Rashford, all overpaid. None of them performing. Nacho, etc. Can't get a game time. It's madness, says JB. Well, one thing that I hadn't thought about what JB said there is if you combine Rashford and Sancho's wage, you're somewhere in the region of £750,000, maybe more. So Rashford's meant to be 350, Sancho's somewhere around 300. Adding in Antony's puts it at about 950. So we're paying nearly £1 million a week for three wingers that are not performing. That's £52 million a year. That's £200 million over 4 years a week in wages for getting transfer fees. It's an incredible amount of money. It's an incredible amount of money. I just don't think Rashford is good enough and has been promoted above his level. Loads of players have a purple patch occasionally. Look at Michu. He is back at his normal level now, I think, says Rory. And that, look, I mean, Rory, Ricky, he would probably agree with you. I'm more the other way. I think that only when Rashford's 30 will you be able to say what sort of player he is. Was he a purple patch player, or was he more consistently good than he had dips? Every footballer has a dip in form, apart from these goats of the game that we've become accustomed to. Like Messi and Ronaldo, not only were they sensational footballers, they were ridiculously consistent as well. Normal top-class players don't perform every week, every year. Rashford's 26. If you look back at the last 6 years, it's probably 50-50 of being brilliant and being off. The next 4 years are his prime. If he has another 4 years where it's 2 and 2, then yeah, you could say he was a bit of an inconsistent player. But I think the next 4 years define what he is. Feed the Scot and he will score, says Robert McCormack. I mean, the way Scott McTominay scores goals, Robert, around the box, even that goal for Scotland the other night, it's not a clean hit. It's there's something to be said about Scott McTominay in and around the box. The problem is outside of the box. Our biggest problem is putting these average players in golden cages. The new CEO should put a wage cap in of 200k a week. Saudi Arabia is our only hope, says Spencer. I would absolutely love that. I'd love the new CEO to come in and say our ceiling for wages is 200 grand a week. And then everyone who moans can piss off and everyone who wants to stay and work can stay. Because the thing about a footballer at Man United is, and I spoke to somebody about this about 4 years ago, is that it wasn't a player, by the way. It was an agent. And basically what they said is, and their client wasn't even at Man United. They were just talking about Man United because obviously the football world's quite small. And they said, what baffles me about Man United is why they pay massive wages, considering most players, unless they don't want to go to United, would go to United for more reasonable wages. They go to Liverpool for reasonable wages. Man City's wages aren't massively big, really, comparable. But Man United pay stupid wages to get average players. And what they said to me was that Man United, if you look at Liverpool, they don't pay stupid wages and they still get hungry, good players because it's good recruitment. But on top of that, the advantage Man United have got is if you had better recruitment and you bought hungry players in who want to play for the club, they'll do it for 150 grand a week. They will because they want to play for Man United. But the big thing Man United have got is, and everybody knows this, is if you're a Man United player, and if you're not a Man United player and you sign for Manchester United, you're going to make a shitload of money extra anyway, because we live in a world of social media now. And if you're playing for, I don't know, Everton, and your social media is 100,000 followers, the day you sign for Man United, you're going to go to 2 million. And if you do well at Man United, you're going to go to 5 million. And you're going to get brands pouring in, you're going to make loads of money. So this agent was saying to me, it makes no sense to me why Man United chuck silly wages at players. You want hungry players, like Liverpool do, you pay them a reasonable wage, and then those players will explode anyway because they're going to a club where your social pull is absolutely massive. You don't need to pay average players 200 grand a week at Man United, and it's baffling why they do it. But we've always been seen as a circus. We need to recruit players that are hungry, that want to come and play for Manchester United, and it's not about the wage packet at the end of the month. Our biggest problem is putting... I've done that from Spencer. Thank you very much. Bobby says, all I hear for you, Mark, is making excuses for Rashford. Wake up and smell the coffee. But, you know, contrary... Can we call Scott... Start calling Scott S9, says Robert McCormack. You can call him what you like if you keep scoring. I've always been a fan of Rashford, and I've always been a fan of Martial. I mean, you have to be a longer viewer of the channel to know that, but I have always liked Rashford and Martial. The tweet a couple of weeks ago was quite funny because it's just obviously out of context. He doesn't. The people around him and him obviously don't realise or watch, which is absolutely fine. But I've always been a fan of Rashford, and I'm quite loyal, so I'm not going to turn my back on them. I did say we should have sold Rashford at the end of the Rangnick season because I just thought it was best for everybody, and I put my hands up. I got it wrong. Ten Hag turned it around, and so did Rashford. I'm not going to make that mistake again. I think there's a lot of people writing him off like they wrote him off at the end of that Rangnick season, and then he went and, well, he won Player of the Year last year, deservedly or not. So for me, I'm like Ten Hag. I'm absolutely convinced there is a renaissance here. I really am. And I can't. I apologise for that if you think otherwise. But if you think otherwise, there are people on the channel who you can latch on to. As I say, Ricky will probably feel that. I think Faz feels that. But look, it's all about different opinion. Ronald says, just testing. I'm in China and could not send messages for a few months due to location. Are you perhaps aware of this? Says Ronald. I don't know how it works. Where should Rashford play? 45% of you say off the left, 55% of you say off the right. Very interesting. Can I just say, we've done 40 minutes on this show. I was only going to do about half an hour for a morning show. That means you're brilliant, basically, because that 40 minutes is absolutely flown by. You're absolutely brilliant. What a fantastic morning show that's been. If you saw it live, well done. If you're watching it later, leave us your comments on everything that you've heard. Don't forget, it's charity stream day. I'm in a very talkative mood. I'm going to be doing keep up challenges. I'm going to be getting food. I'm going to be watching films. I'm going to be playing games against you. We've got FIFA Pro Clubs. Get your Pro Clubs team ready. We're raising money for charity today. That's what it's all about. The link is in the live chat. You can get contributing now, but from 11 o'clock, I'll push you over to the stream and we're live. We'll be talking about all sorts of things. Where was I when Princess Diana died? I thought about this last night. Somebody asked me this. I'll talk about that. We'll have the definitive answer on whether Jack could have got on the door in Titanic. It's the definitive scientific answer. Get ready for that. Rory says, off topic, but all the best today. Can't send super chats on That's Football for whatever reason. Just go to Just Giving, mate. I don't want super chats on That's Football. Just go to the Just Giving page and donate because it goes straight to the charity there and we can see the live counter. So just go there, please, mate, if you want to contribute. We'll be there, says Mateus. Well, I'm going to push you over there now and I'm live in 16 minutes. So I'll see you there in a bit. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks for all your support. It's a really important day. Please give what you can and I'll see you over on the stream in a bit. Thank you very much for watching.